What's up guys, Dirk here from intelligentcryptocurrency.com, and today's video is a very important one where I'm going to give you cold hard facts as to why you should, in my opinion, own some cryptocurrency and why it has the potential to really make you incredibly wealthy. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Dirk, and if you want no BS, no hype cryptocurrency content and updates, please consider subscribing to the channel below. It is 100% free, and if you do, click the notification bell after you subscribe so you get future updates. Additionally, I'd like to ask you, if you enjoy this content, please give this a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps the algorithm for YouTube, helps the channel grow and these videos to go out to more people. So I really appreciate you doing that. Now, let's get straight into it. I want to break down for you, really with cold hard facts, why Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are literally a life-changing opportunity to create wealth, but also to protect and preserve the current wealth that you already have. So bear with me throughout this presentation. And to be able to get started, we need to start right at the beginning. So as you can see over here, this is a nice little briefcase full of $100 notes. Now you can see over here on the screen also, I put a quote by Henry Ford, which says, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." Now, what is fiat currency? What are those paper notes that we are so used to, that we have grown up with? And not just dollars, but euros and Australian dollars, Singapore dollars, all fiat currency, whatever currency from whatever country you're in. What is it and where does it come from? Have you ever stopped to ask yourself that question? Have you actually done the research ever to really dive into it? And for the longest time, I haven't. For the most part of my life, I just accepted we had this thing called money, which is fiat currency. It's not the same thing as money, but we use this as money, we use it as a medium of exchange, and I've never questioned it. And most people don't, right? Most people, this is just what you grow up with. You see your parents use it, your grandparents use it, and it just becomes a part of life. Just like you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to drink water, and that is part of life. But when you actually go and look into it, that is where this quote that is on the screen becomes very relevant. Because if everyone were to really look into what it was and how the fiat currency system works, I'm pretty sure that most people will be like, no, this is not what we want. We need something else. So I'm going to go into some details here about this system, but I really encourage you to go and research this for yourself, to really go into depth and actually go and look up what it is. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into it on the channel because I actually think the channel might get censored or shadow banned or something like that for even just talking about this topic because, well, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. For the rest, I'm going to have to leave you to go and do some research on your own about this topic. But fiat currency, the paper money that we use, if you look over here, since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, you can see the purchasing power of the dollar, right? You can see it started at 100%, and whatever the real statistic is, but the figures are there, it's lost more than 90% of its purchasing power. So that means for every dollar that bought you stuff 100 years ago, or just over 100 years ago, now that's lost 95% of its purchasing power. And you've been aware of this, whether you've researched the stuff or not. You've just basically seen it throughout your life. The easiest way to look at it is go to the grocery store and look at the last 20, 30 years, how much less you've been able to buy for single units of your currency, right? Here's an example, a $20 bill, what it would buy in 1998, then in 2005, 2014. The prices of stuff goes up. Why does that happen, right? That's called inflation, but why does it happen? So you have to dive into that and understand what fiat currency really is. Now the problem with fiat currencies also is that there are a lot of factors, we'll get into this a little bit later, that basically we have no control over it. This fiat currency is controlled by central entities, basically the central banks and the Federal Reserve, which by the way is a private company, but the central banks basically can create as much fiat currency as they want. And this year alone, the amount of currency that's being created this year is more than previously in the last 2 centuries. So it's absolutely nuts. And what happens is the more that of this currency that gets created by these central banks or by the Federal Reserve all around the world, not just for the US dollar, is basically that the purchasing power starts to decrease more and more. So you can buy far less with your currency every single time they print more of it. And it's a death spiral. It's going to end very, very badly. Now you can see over here, this is from the Federal Reserve themselves, the information. This is the M2 money stock. So you can look, they have all this information publicly available. You can go and look this up and you can see over here the money supply. So the more of it that they print, the less purchasing power your money has. Now, if everyone has certain amounts of savings, they've been working for it their entire lives, and you have that money in the bank account, right, that fiat currency, but the Federal Reserve starts to print more, basically everyone's purchasing power drops. So you still have the same amount of nominal money, nominal fiat currency, but you can buy far less with it. So I'm not going to say what that is, but you can make up your own mind about that. I mean, if you have money and someone else is printing it up and it reduces yours in half, there's a word for that, and it starts with a T. So you can see over here, the FRED, the M2 money stock, you can see how it's been increasing over the last 20, 30 years, but especially in 2020, you can see how it's just gone vertical, right? And that's because trillions and trillions and trillions of stimulus have been created this year alone. There's a website called the usdebtclock.org, and you can see this has got all sorts of information about the US, but you can see top left there, US national debt is currently at 27 trillion. It keeps going higher and higher and higher, and this is just going to keep going up. So fiat currency is actually created from debt. I'm not going to go into the technical aspects of how it's actually created with the Federal Reserve or fractional reserve banking and all that kind of stuff, but it's created from debt. It is a debt-based system. It is not backed by gold. We got taken, or the US dollar got taken off the gold standard a long time ago. So it's basically a debt-based system. That debt keeps increasing. And one of the ways to save it, to be able to repay that debt, if it ever does get repaid, is by drastically devaluing the value of the currency, right? So that 27 trillion will stay the same in nominal amounts, but the value, the purchasing power, might become half or a tenth of it if they continue to devalue the currency. Now, this is whatever happens here behind the scenes in the, say, the accounting for countries and governments and all that kind of stuff. You might think, oh, well, that's not my problem. It is your problem because you're using that currency unit. You're getting paid in it, you're saving in it, and the more that gets devalued, the less wealth and purchasing power you have. Look, there's basically no way out. This is a one-way street. They're going to keep printing, and it's going to keep devaluing. And what does that lead to? Massive, massive inflation. We've seen it in other countries throughout history. You can see over here on the left, Venezuela, right? The money is so worthless, they're literally making paper, they're making handbags out of the fiat currency. That's how worthless it is. People are throwing it in the street. You know, you heard the stories about in World War II where they had to take literally wheelbarrows full of paper notes to be able to buy a loaf of bread. You can see over here on the right, $100 trillion note from Zimbabwe. That's what happens. You know, eventually the currency gets so worthless that it just gets so massively devalued. And could this ever happen? You know, it's hard to imagine. Will that happen with the US dollar, with the euro? Well, you know, the more they keep printing, you can see the prices of stuff is going up. So let me give you a simple explanation. I'm going to hop over to a sketch pad to illustrate this a little bit, what is happening. Okay, so I've prepared this for you to be able to try and explain this in a simplistic way to get a bird's eye overview. Please go and research this in further detail because it will be very, very interesting for you to understand everything here. Okay, so CB, central banks, okay, they control what we all use as a currency, fiat currency, and they go brr, they print as much of it as they want. Now, the thing you need to know about fiat currency, there's no cap of the supply. Okay, we actually don't even know how much money there is, how much fiat currency is in circulation, is in people's bank accounts. Why can't we go and see this? And yes, there's a money supply and all that kind of stuff, but there's nowhere online where you can see, you know, there are this many $1 trillion, this many trillion euros, etc., right? And that's probably one of the reasons why we'll be moving towards a central bank digital currency where everything is digital and all that information will be available. But basically there's no supply cap. So the powers that be can print as much of it as they want. We don't know how much there is, how much is being printed. We don't know any of that stuff, okay? We know it's not backed by gold because it got taken off the gold standard. It's basically backed by debt. That's it. That's the fiat currency system, okay? Now, this is you and me and all the normal people. And what we generally have to do is we have to get a job or a business to be able to get this fiat currency stuff so we can pay for a house and a car and all that kind of stuff. Now, the thing that we need to realize is that, over the years, things have changed considerably. Now, back in the day, and we're talking 20, 30, 40 years ago, not even that long ago, really, but, you could have a normal job, earn your fiat currency, and put it in a bank and earn really nice interest, 10, 12, 15, 20% in certain countries, in certain circumstances. That was possible. You just put your money in a bank, you got interest, and if you worked hard and saved and built up that nest egg, you could live off the interest, and that was the whole idea behind it. You work hard during your healthy and strong years, and when you retire, you've built up the savings, you get your pension plan, you have your savings, you get your interest, and hey, you get to live out your days in happiness and pass on, the wealth that you have to your kids and all that kind of stuff. But that was an illusion, and that's not possible anymore, because now the interest rates are pretty much at zero or negative already, meaning that not only if you have fiat currency can you not get interest on it, but it's getting to a point where you're actually going to have to pay to keep your fiat currency in the bank, right? So that is a big, big problem. The other problem is that the price of everything is going up, okay? Everything is going up because there's this inflation, because the purchasing power is decreasing. But the problem is the price of stuff goes up, but the amount of fiat that you make from your job does not keep up with that inflation. So you find stuff getting more and more expensive, everything, right? Rent, groceries, the price of just general stuff, house, car, everything just gets so much more expensive. And at a point where the job doesn't keep up with it, it's basically like, well, now I can't pay for stuff anymore, and the quality of life that you can have becomes less and less. And that's why you see people these days, they're working 2 and 3 jobs just to be able to pay the bills, which is absolutely ridiculous. And it's not like people are lazy. They're working harder than ever before, but because that system is broken, they're not able to continue to make enough. And it's just it's imagine you're just swimming in the ocean, and you have to keep swimming and swimming to prevent yourself from drowning. But at some point, you're just going to get too tired, and you're going to end up drowning. That's how it is working with the money system, with the fiat currency system. Okay, now you've also seen over your life, just like I've said, groceries, prices of houses, everything has just gone up a lot. Now, a lot of this increase in price is actually due to the decrease in purchasing power of fiat currency. Okay, now of course there has been an increase in population, there's been an increase in development and demand, so prime property and real estate and stuff like that has obviously also gone up in price because of the scarcity factor and the location, and there's only so much real estate, there's so many people that want to buy it, so that obviously also contributes supply and demand. But most of the increase in prices has been because the purchasing power has gone down, and we've seen this with stocks, we've seen this with real estate, precious metals, Bitcoin, and crypto. So this is basically a bird's eye overview of what's happening here, and this thing is broken. This thing is broken, okay? The traditional job system, having a 9 to 5, that is just basically going to end in disaster because the price of stuff is going to keep going up. This is going to keep going up. This is going to keep going up. Only because they keep printing so much. The central banks keep printing this, it devalues. There's also no interest anymore, okay? So people are going to take their fiat currency and they're not going to put it in a bank anymore, right? If you've worked your whole life and you've got savings in a bank, you're not going to pay the bank to keep your money there. You're going to put it somewhere to protect you from this inflation and to maybe be able to get some yield. So you're going to put it into the stock market, maybe into real estate, into precious metals, and into Bitcoin and crypto. Anywhere but in fiat currency and anywhere but in a bank account, because you're getting nothing there and you're not going to pay to have it there too. And the people who are working this job, they're going to suffer. Even if you have a good job, the system is a problem. So you got to think about this and you got to take actions to basically protect yourself from this moving forward. So let's head back to the slideshow right now. So in summary, fiat currency is unsustainable. The purchasing power is decreasing rapidly. There's negative interest rates in banks. Money is going to flow to assets to protect against inflation and get yield. A job is not going to save you. You need to take action for your future. So that brings us to the question, where do you put your fiat currency? If you've already got savings and it's in fiat currency, where can you put it? What are your options? Okay, so basically stocks. Okay, now as we've seen before in other countries, if you go and look what happened in countries like Venezuela and Argentina, when there is that massive inflation, sure, the stock markets go up. Go and look at the Venezuelan stock market, what happened there. But the problem is the stock market doesn't go up as much as the purchasing power of that currency decreases. So sure, the stock market might go sky high, but if the value of whatever it is that your underlying fiat currency, right, if that decreases so much, then you're still losing, right? So that's a problem with stocks. Yes, you can put money in real estate, fantastic. It will probably continue to go up as, the purchasing power of fiat currency drops. But the problem with real estate is you have maintenance, right? If you have a property, you're going to have to keep up with that. There's annual taxes that will probably continue to increase for property, and real estate is illiquid, right? Especially in bad times. Now, in good times when there's high demand, sure, it'll be liquid. You'll be able to sell it very easily. But when things go south, it's going to be hard to sell it, especially if you have luxury. So it depends on the kind of property obviously you have and the location and all that kind of stuff. But if you have a property that's like $1 million or $5 or $10 million, in hard times it's going to be hard to sell that. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's the downside of that. You can put your fiat currency into business, right? Well, obviously that's risky because there's a lot more risks associated with starting a business, especially in these times. Who knows what's going to be locked down or shut down or all that kind of stuff. Business is just risky. And additionally, if you're older, you might not want to start a business, so you might not want to put your money into a business. Then you could put your money in precious metals like gold and silver, which have been considered real money for centuries. They've kept their purchasing power over hundreds of years. The analogy is basically a 1 ounce gold coin was able to buy you a good suit, professional tailor-made suit, 100 years ago, and it can still do the same today. The problem with precious metals is obviously you have to store it somewhere. So if you store it with a third party, well, you don't really own it. What happens if something happens to that third party? You obviously have a security risk, whether it's with a third party or if you keep it at home, it could be stolen, criminals, etc. And also transport, like it's amazing having gold and silver, but if you need to move it somewhere or you need to pay someone with it, how are you going to take $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million worth of gold and silver to another country, right? Like it's just not practical at all. You can also put your money into other stuff. When the inflation gets so bad that every single day the purchasing power is decreasing more and more, and the price of stuff just goes up every single day, well, people are going to put their stuff into anything that's not fiat currency to protect that value. Maybe it's like cars, tools, whatever it is. But the thing with that is obviously you need to store it. What is the value? Like, how is it going to keep its value, especially over time if it's something that might get older or stop working or anything like that? So what are you going to buy to keep your value? It's a possibility. But then there's also Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which is a relatively new thing. Bitcoin has only been around for 11 years, but I'm going to break down for you now why Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are such a good option. So let's look at why, in my opinion, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are a good place to park a small percentage of your overall net worth, not just to hedge against inflation, but also to have enormous upside potential, and why I think a lot more people are going to start putting money into Bitcoin specifically, but also cryptocurrencies. So this one specifically for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, unlike fiat currency, is supply capped, okay? So it is provably scarce. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence. That is all there will ever be. Bitcoin is governed by code and math. There's no central entity that controls it. It can't be printed. None of that. Okay, 21 million is the limit that there will be, which makes it scarce, which is really good. It's governed by the code and math, so everything is according to a network protocol. It can't just be altered by a single person just like that. Bitcoin is highly liquid and it is considered sound money, or it has all the principles of sound money. And sound money basically means it's durable, it's fungible, it's divisible, it's transportable, all those good things that are the quality of money. I'm not going to go into that in detail. If you want, just do a quick Google search for sound money. It gives you all the properties of that. But basically also Bitcoin is highly liquid. At any time you can sell it, buy it, sell it very easily, 24/7, 365. Okay, Bitcoin is global, very important thing. You can take it with you anywhere you go. You can send your Bitcoin to anywhere in the world almost instantly, in less than an hour, virtually for free, couple of dollars, even less, for no matter what the amount is that you want to send. So that's very, very important there too. And one of the most important properties, I think, of Bitcoin too is that it's unconfiscatable. So unlike your funds in a bank account that can get frozen, or if something happens to the bank, who knows, you might lose a portion or all of your deposits and your savings, which, by the way, has happened before in Cyprus in 2008, and there's all sorts of bail-in laws also. But Bitcoin, you can fully control your own money. Okay, you can keep the private keys. There's no bank that can freeze it, no government, no nothing. You are in full control over it. And I think that alone also has an enormous amount of value into why people are going to start putting some part of their net worth or their savings into Bitcoin so they can control it. You've seen it, it's happening in Venezuela. The people who are able to buy Bitcoin, they were able to hedge against that massive decrease in purchasing power, and they were able to control their own Bitcoin and their own private keys. So it's very, very important, especially if things head in towards a stage where there's uncertainty with banks, bank solvency, inflation, all that kind of stuff. Now, why cryptocurrencies? So crypto is a little bit different to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the original one. It's peer-to-peer digital cash. There are literally thousands of other cryptocurrencies, some trying to compete with Bitcoin, but most of them aren't. Most of them are also utility tokens for platforms or other things. So there's a whole lot of use cases. So why would you also want to invest potentially into digital assets? Well, first of all, it's a brand new asset class, and I think it's here to stay. JP Morgan has called it a brand new asset class. More and more is starting to point towards banks getting involved, PayPal, all this kind of stuff, where this really is a new asset class. Just like the stock market, now we're moving towards a digital asset class, and this could potentially be huge. Digital seems to be the future, okay? We've seen it this year. More and more is just happening online. The internet is everywhere. It's more available than ever before. It's fast, 4G. They're moving towards 5G. You have almost everyone has a smartphone. Billions of people anyway have a smartphone. There's over 3 billion people who have internet access. Okay, so digital is the future, especially this year. We're stuck at home. It's more remote work, remote learning, all this kind of stuff. So why would money not be digital? All right, and they're already talking about it with central bank digital currencies. It is coming. Okay, we're going to get a central bank digital currency. Digital is the future. Now, the thing about cryptocurrencies is that many of them will have a higher ROI potential than Bitcoin, but at the same time also more risk. Now, because Bitcoin is already larger and more established, that means, okay, let's say, for example, Bitcoin can 10x, but then we have other cryptocurrencies that are far smaller in market cap than Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin does a 10x, some of that money will flow into other cryptocurrencies too, and the returns of other cryptocurrencies could be a multiple of that. So if Bitcoin goes 10x, other cryptos could 20, 30, 50x, maybe even 100x. So, of course, there's a lot more risk involved to it. You need to do your research. You need to understand why that cryptocurrency has potential, who's behind it, what the project is, all that kind of stuff. But that is one of the reasons why you might want to consider investing in other cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin too. So let me tell you why I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are, in my opinion, something that you should have a single-digit percentage of your portfolio in. So why digital assets? First of all, right now it's still a very small asset class. It's $400 billion, which is tiny compared to any of the other asset classes, compared to real estate, compared to stocks, even compared to precious metals, which is a $7 to $8 trillion market cap. Okay, so Bitcoin and all the other thousands of cryptocurrencies combined only have $400 billion of market cap. Now, as you've probably seen if you've watched any of my other videos, there's so much going on with banks getting involved, institutions, I'll share with you in a second, that are all putting money towards this and growing this industry, that there is serious potential for this to go from 400 billion to 4 trillion, maybe 10 trillion, maybe much more over the coming years. So that's important. And if you can get in on something when it's early and small, well, obviously if it gets that much bigger, you'll be able to make potentially huge profits. Now, cryptocurrencies are also an asymmetric bet. So we know the downside. The downside is whatever you put in can go to zero. Okay, that is a possibility and you have to consider it. Maybe not so much with Bitcoin, although it's always possible, but with other smaller cryptocurrencies, there's definitely more risk and some of them can and will go to zero. But the upside is potentially as much as 100x. So that means, yes, you can lose whatever you put in 1 unit, but you can make 100 times that on the upside if you're right. And that is why small bets in crypto can pay off massively, okay? Cryptocurrency, once again, you can be your own bank. I think this is very important to have at least some funds that you're in full control over that are highly liquid, especially Bitcoin. Some of these smaller altcoins, they're completely illiquid, but Bitcoin is very liquid and you can be your own bank. And it's potentially a hedge against inflation because of what I've shown you. Bitcoin is scarce. Okay, there's only 21 million available and it's not possible to print more. So unlike fiat currency, where the more that gets printed, the less it gets worth, with Bitcoin, the more people that buy it, the higher the value becomes. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, maybe cryptocurrencies are interesting or Bitcoin is interesting, how much should you invest? Well, first of all, as you know, I'm not a financial advisor, so nothing here I say should be considered as financial advice. I don't want to tell you what to do with your money, how much to put in. But what I can tell you is that other experts are saying that you should never invest more than single-digit percentages of your net worth into cryptocurrency because it is highly volatile, but also because it is that asymmetric bet. So you don't need to put in huge amounts to be able to get enormous potential returns. So some people suggest 5% or less, which means that if you take 5% of your net worth, in the worst case, if all cryptocurrencies go to zero, which is highly unlikely, but in that case, you lose 5% of your net worth. And in theory, if you have a well-diversified portfolio with stocks and real estate and all that kind of stuff, then even if you lose 5% on the cryptocurrencies in the absolute worst case, which I think is still unlikely, but let's just consider it, then your other investments should make up for that in your other income streams. So it doesn't affect your retirement, it doesn't affect your ability to pay the bills. Sure, it would suck to lose 5%, but that's the risk you take. Whereas the upside is potentially, 10, 20, 50, 100x. So imagine 100x upside potential. You risk 5%. That means if you were to risk 5% and you get 100x on that, you 5x your entire net worth with just a 5% bet. That is the potential of cryptocurrencies, and that is why it's so interesting, and that is why I think, in my opinion, you should own some Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But of course, that is my opinion. Go and consult your financial advisor. Don't take this as financial advice because it is not. So finally, I want to bring you to the last point, which is when will you act? Okay, you've seen all this information over here. You understand now what the fiat currency system is. If you don't, I did go through it pretty quickly. So please go and research that in more detail and really dive into it to figure out what it is and how it works. I've given you the bird's eye overview, but you understand that the more of it they print, the less of it you have. The purchasing power decreases, right? So you keep your same nominal amount, but you can buy less and less with it. Banks are going to negative interest rates, meaning you have to pay to keep your fiat in the bank. Where are you going to put it, right? I've gone through all those options. So banks are literally starting to offer cryptocurrency services. That is a huge 180-degree change since 2017, where banks were basically against crypto. Now they are in the game and they are offering services. They are now allowed in the US to offer crypto custody. They can hold cryptocurrency for their clients. What do you think is going to happen once this is all ready and banks are going to start offering cryptocurrency services to millions, tens of millions of clients? What do you think is going to happen when it starts to go into retirement accounts? What is going to happen? Even if it's just 1%. Imagine 1% of all pension funds, all retirement accounts purchase Bitcoin. What is that going to do for the inflow into Bitcoin and the price of it, right? We are seeing the last few months, publicly listed companies are buying up Bitcoin, hundreds of millions of dollars worth. MicroStrategy, $425 million. Square bought $50 million worth of Bitcoin. Sure, it's 1% of their assets, but $50 million. There's another company bought $115 million. There was another UK company that's putting 10% of their cash reserves in Bitcoin. This has started, and companies are starting to do this. How many companies are there that's going to follow suit, right? We're going to start thinking, they're seeing these other companies doing this. Hey, we need to get on this bandwagon before everyone does it. What do you think that's going to do to the price, right? Billionaires literally are allocating funds to Bitcoin exposure. Paul Tudor Jones, but others also. They're buying single-digit percentage exposure to Bitcoin. Some are buying actual Bitcoin, some are buying Bitcoin futures, but either way, they're exposing their portfolio to Bitcoin. Okay, VCs are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into startups. This has been happening over the last few years. What do you think is going to happen? All that money, all those people behind that have a vested interest in making cryptocurrency and Bitcoin succeed in the infrastructure and the startups. And if they're investing all this money into the startups, it's in their best interest for this to really grow also. So they're all going to be marketing and helping the whole cryptocurrency industry and asset class grow to much higher levels. So seeing this, right, you are still early to this. You still have an opportunity to get involved, even if it's just a tiny little bit. So my whole goal for this is basically to share with you all this information, what's happening, because we can see where it's going. If you understand where fiat currency is heading, if you see where digital assets are heading, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, this could potentially be a life-changing opportunity where you can take small amounts of money, couple $100, couple $1,000 even, and turn that into potential life-changing money that can set you up for the future and that can give you much better protection than a business or a job can, because things are not looking good for the future. And let's call a spade a spade. It's better to act and know this information and prepare yourself so that at least you can be ahead of most people who still don't understand what's happening. That's why I said few understand what's really happening. And finally, what we've been seeing this whole year, this is going to continue more and more. Money printer goes brrr, okay? There's the central banks, they're not going to stop printing. They're just going to increase because that is how the system works, okay? They need more and more and more stimulus just to be able to sustain the debt, and it keeps getting more and bigger until it just gets to a point where it's completely unsustainable. Okay, so Bitcoin is one of the logical alternatives in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So I really hope that you enjoyed this presentation. If you did, I would like to ask you, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below with your thoughts, with your questions. I will answer it personally. It really helps the algorithm, and I want this to go out to as many people as possible. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe below or consider subscribing. Click the notification bell. It's 100% free and you will get future updates what I do here. And in case you do want to learn more about crypto, or you want to get started and you don't know where to start, I have a membership that is all inclusive to help you get up to speed with cryptocurrencies and to help you have the best possible chance of success with it all. I call it Intelligent Cryptocurrency. So it's the first link in the description below, or you can go to intelligentcryptocurrency.com. I've got a complete beginner's course to get you up to speed. I've got a course about trading and technical analysis. I publish a monthly newsletter every single month with updates, technical analysis, research, and at least one project, one cryptocurrency that I think has high potential for future gains. And it comes with a private chat group where you have direct access to myself and all the other members of the program, where you can ask your questions. We can talk about crypto, gold, stocks, real estate. I share a lot of updates there. And if you have questions or tech questions, put them in there. Members will answer. I will personally answer. And you have all of that. And right now I'm running a special offer on that. So if you want to go check that out, intelligentcryptocurrency.com, or the first link in the description. And it comes with a full 60-day money-back guarantee. So you can go through everything, and if for whatever reason you don't like it, you can get your money back. Hopefully that won't be the case, because everything is there and all the value is there. So once again, thanks for watching. Make sure to smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.